Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the In Focus podcast, brought to you by the Artist Index. And we have our guest lined up. And as per usual, I'm going to let our guest introduce themselves and spell their names because we all know what could happen in the future if we don't have the name spelled. It's all for the historic record. So with that in mind, go ahead, guest.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sarah Hale Folger, Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, Hale, H-A-L-E, Folger, F-O-L-G-E-R. And I'm coming to you from the Kilburn Mill, which is located in right off of Clark's Cove on West Rodney French Boulevard in New Bedford. And I am the creative director here, and also within my own right, am an artist here who has my gallery at the Kilburn Mill.
And I was just going to lead off, but you stole my thunder. that you wear at least two hats. One of them is as the creative director, obviously, of the Kilburn Mill, which we'll get into, and also as an artist yourself.
Correct.
So let's get on with the Kilburn Mill, because there's been so much time lost not getting to the Kilburn Mill. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history on it from my perspective.
Sure.
The previous owners, the Lefkowitz family, Stephen and Larry Lefkowitz, who owned Furniture City, I knew both of them because they were both accounts of my dad's business. And I knew Steve from NFIB, National Federation for Independent Business. And we got to talking about the demise of the furniture business and how the furniture business is kind of bizarre. It's gone from selling furniture to building furniture stores, which is just too weird to get into. And he was asking about how he could get more involved and invested in the art community or the creative community. And I said, well, you've already got several artists in the building, as you know, obviously. And one of the problems is that the building looks sort of grungy. I mean, the sidewalk is a mess. Call up the mayor. He's very pro-business, pro-artist, and pro-creative community. That sounds kind of bizarre. But anyway, and let's see what happens. And
Well, you basically just said procreate a community, which is basically bring to life and give birth to and create something. And so in essence, you're right.
Yeah. Procreative. Yeah. So he was for the creative community. And coincidentally, my friend, fellow artist and gallerist, Luis Villanueva, was told that he had to vacate his Center Street gallery location because the building had been sold. So I connected him with Steve, and Luis opened probably one of the first industrial type galleries in the city. And by industrial is the industrial lighting, very New Yorky kind of a vibe to it. And then that's where you come in. You and is it Jim Murphy or Murray? I always get them.
Jim Murray is the construction manager on site, on location. Yes.
Okay. And he's also one of the owners?
He's in the ownership group. Yes.
Ownership group. Okay.
Yep.
All right. With that, I'll just let you roll with that.
Sure. Well, I can tell you this right now, that even though the pandemic has slowed some progress, mostly on the performing arts end, and also being able to congregate, as you know, at the Kilburn Mill. That has really been an issue that has been very trying and difficult. But at the same time, we continue to build out space. So let me just give you you gave a little bit of the history about Furniture City. Prior to that, this mill was created or built in 1905, and it was originally a textile mill. So then it took ownership after that, a long time later, into Furniture City. And then about 3.5 years ago, the new owners purchased it when it went up for sale when Furniture City was closing its doors. So it's 500,000 square feet. And there's the large 3-story building that also has the basement that has the new Bedford antiques in it. There's also a building out in back that has a manufacturing company and a wholesale company located within it. And you'd be surprised what's not even here a year. I still run into people I didn't know were here. So there's over 100 tenants, closer to 120. I would say 40 of those are storage units still, but as we are progressing into bringing the energy back into the mill, it's a challenging thing because it's also city planning in a sense of where's the retail area going to be? Where are the artists and the artisans going to be located in such a way that people can find them congregated together, and it helps cross-pollinate for economic growth within the mill. So we have anything from like I said, manufacturing, retail. We have wellness. We have a lot of wellness and fitness gyms, yoga, spiritual destiny type of locations, private, I would say one-on-one fitness people as well. And then we have a chiropractor that's moving in. We have Doko Cafe, which, by the way, you can see the workmanship of the ownership team's construction crew. So there's an on-site construction crew. And the challenge has been the pandemic with not being able to have a fuller staff of people. So when we get somebody that wants 4,000 square feet, or if they want 20,000 square feet, or if they only want 300 square feet, it's managing the leases as they come in and people sign their leases. They kind of get in line for as soon as we're done with this location, we can get to you. So we have our own everything in-house construction crew. But like I said, you never know if somebody comes in and wants, a large amount of space, and we're in the middle of 3 smaller projects. It's just managing. I think it's a very tricky thing to do. But at the same time, we're building community. We're thinking in the economic way, which is how do you cross-pollinate your businesses in order to have them prosper? And it's difficult because if you get in earlier, let's say in a retail area, you have to wait for the rest of the retail area to be built out before it can be filled up. And so there's a little bit of, anxiety, but at the same time, getting in on the ground floor is not a bad idea. And to be honest, we're so far ahead right now with the retail area. We're getting ready to, once the wall opens on one end, we call them streets now because we've named our hallways street names, and probably in June those signs are going to go up, and it's all these projects between city planning and almost like a mall mentality in certain areas, but then also pre-existing manufacturing companies who really aren't going to be open to the public. And we have, people that have storage units that aren't going to be open to the public. So how do we, feng shui, say, a hallway so that when people are coming through, it works for everybody. It works for the tenants who want to stay open, for foot traffic. And so, it's constantly reconfiguring and sometimes having to move some of our tenants to another location within the mill, it's called growing pains. But I think, there will always be some people that, it's a little more disheartening for the change, but on other areas with a lot of the tenants, they're just really thrilled about the fact that we're constantly trying to find ways to meet the needs of our tenants, to be a part of the economic driving in Bedford. And so as I say that, one of the bigger projects that has been in existence before I got here even was something called the Artisan Center. One of the owners is very much into the arts, and really could see the Kilburn Mill becoming a vibrant arts and culture community, a community within a community, let's say. So, you know, when I took the job here, I live in Rhode Island. And so when I took the job here, I considered moving here because of, you know, the mayor's platform that he ran on for economic growth and prosperity, and the way he saw revitalizing New Bedford was using creative and performing arts. So when you see a city that's already committed to what the world knows to be the most economic driving force, which is the arts, you know you're in the right place. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, I'd already have an apartment here. But we're waiting for the third floor to be able to open. And, you know, this is transforming an old mill into something that is ready to go in the current situation with all the, you know, permitting and licensing and all of those things. So working really hard to move us forward. So that's on the more structural kind of logistical, you know, who are we? As we develop our mission statement, I could say that it will develop and change on a more profound way, which will include much more of a city within walls type of feeling. I say that because it's like a line I like, a vision I carry in my mind as I walk down the halls, and I can imagine as, you know, it becomes more fluid and storage units get moved to a storage unit area, and those units become available for retail and for businesses that want to stay open during, you know, regular business hours. It's just going to get better and better and better. And so I can see the vibrancy, because at times we have that vibrancy. And part of that is the arts and the Artisan Center.
Well,
So
how long have you been there now?
I've been here since, believe it or not, January 2020.
Okay, and when
So a little over a year.
when did the Maurice take ownership?
3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago. Okay, so you were just shortly after. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
The amount of progress that has been accomplished has been phenomenal.
Yes, it has been.
One of the biggest.
Kudos to Jim Murray.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit on history again, because
Sure.
you may not know. One of the artists that was one of the original tenants there under the Lefkowitz family, Jim Charette, brought up a very, very interesting point. It wasn't very subtle, but it was very, very interesting. It was during one of the AHA ramp-ups, and he was a little miffed that open studios didn't include the artists that were that were in the building at that time. And it was kind of an interesting situation, because geographically, the city of New Bedford is a peninsula, and you are the most evident, in that peninsula mentality. I mean, you are on a finger sticking into the water.
Yes,
people don't go by you; they have to go to you, and then they have to drive away from you. It has to be a destination.
Yes, it does.
First point. The mayor obviously putting the walkway on the Hurricane Dike, which I saw being built as a child, on Mott Street, when I lived on Mott Street, was phenomenal. It somehow just made what was once an eyesore a wonder of the city. The importance of a destination. Now, you've got all kinds of things going on with entertainment and wedding venues. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Sure.
So they hired John Ippolito from Yellow Box Entertainment to run their shows. Now, mind you, we had many shows planned as soon as we walked in the door, which all had to be canceled because of COVID. So it's been a distressing time in our industry for entertainers, musicians, comedians, you name it. And you've seen a lot of people go virtually. You've seen a lot of people actually not do so well because their reputation, their ability to show themselves in their living room or in their bedroom behind a camera was nothing like being on a stage. And yet they're forced to put themselves in these positions in less than stellar environment. But kudos to them, and kudos for the people that tune in and who have tuned in over this last year to support musicians and comedians and all kinds of entertainers. But that said, one of the things that John and I collaborated on here at the Kilburn Mill was bringing the music component into the mill during virtual shows. So we had, Ayla Brown, Rob Bellamy, we had James Montgomery, and we did some, many others, and we did some on the road where I interviewed Christine Ullman down in Connecticut. She's the Beehive Queen from Saturday Night Live, and she's a singer, of course, And so we tried to keep things interesting. We brought the New Bedford Symphony in. Once again, where music meets the arts. So you had symphony players inside of different galleries like Judith Klein, Sheila Oliveri, and we also brought some of the artists upstairs, socially distanced them, separated them, brought some of their artwork and did a virtual art show. So we've been trying to, like you said, we're all sometimes even busier now than we were. It's because we're learning new things and doing new things that are sometimes outside of our comfort zone, but we're definitely trying to keep our relevancy going. But as we open back up, which will be coming soon, June 13th, we have Doug Flutie coming in with a Flutie band coming in. He's flying up from Florida. It's going to be a really amazing night. We have we had to reschedule, but we have Barry Goodrow's Engine Room. Barry being the principal, the lead guitarist from the band Boston, formerly of the band Boston, and his new band with their new album release. We have that coming up. We've interviewed Yaniv Deneur from the New Bedford Symphony. We have him coming in. We're going to be doing a seasonal series with the symphony where we have intuitive art and artist painting while the music's going on, and it goes on and so forth and so on. We have an amazing array of things that are coming up using the entertainment and the arts together. We also have comedy that's being booked. We've got Christine Hurley coming in and Dave Russo. We have plenty more lined up. And of course, the wedding industry now. As our numbers will be able to open up more, people will be able to book more weddings here. We have an amazing venue on the third floor. It's really second to none. We have a rooftop deck that's 7,000 square feet. You can get married there. Go into the beautiful white Dartmouth room that houses a little over 200 seated for dinner for your reception. We have an 11,000 square foot event center, actually two of those, or double them. And we have another entertainment venue, another 5,000 square feet that will be utilized not until probably 2022, just because we have to get things moving in the right direction. And, as our vision for the third floor becomes realized with weddings, events, festivals, trade shows, TED Talks, with Night Stage Performance Center is what we're calling our venue on the third floor for our music and entertainment. You will start to see that develop, the mission of it even grow, the vision of it just expand, just like the vision for the Kilburn Mill. And I have to say, it's been it's brutal, like it is for everybody else out there struggling and trying to keep things afloat. But I have to say, we have still been taking in wonderful tenants here on other levels. We've still been able to, quote unquote, do our real estate, rent out artist studios, wholesalers for, retail shops and all that sort of thing. So we haven't died on the vine. We have been still moving forward and preparing ourselves for the great awakening, the great opening, which is coming very soon in June.
Well, let me tell you, you named all the things that a destination needs. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's super, super important because
Sure.
At one time, way back, that part of the city was a getaway, going down to Hazelwood Park, going down to Acushnet Park, which was literally blown away by the Hurricane of 38. So it's great to see all that activity, all that vibrancy that's going on. I also love your concept of the city. One of the biggest worries a lot of creatives have is gentrification. The creative community moves into a dilapidated, rundown area of a town. They start fixing it up. They start bringing in foot traffic, and next thing you know, the rents get hiked and they get pushed out. But with the mix that you've got going on there, it looks like that may be kept at arm's length for quite a long time. The other thing is it reminded me so much of Eastern Market in Detroit, where you've got all these things going on at the same time. You've got galleries, you've got produce, and open air markets. You've got, you name it, it's there. And that's really, really fantastic. And one of the things going, to the first day of the current administration with John Mitchell is there was a buzz right around town amongst the creatives. Somebody noticed that the mayor, when he decorated his office, had artwork plastered all over it. And they said, "Oh my God, this could be good. This guy likes art." And then, here we go. The destination situation specifically focused on the artists themselves, the art studios, the Artisan Center. Any plans that you can reveal about that specifically? Because, your biggest competitor, quote unquote, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, is Hatch Street.
Sure.
Hatch has been, for a long time, but you've pretty much just swooped in.
Well,
Let's use that word, swoop. Yeah.
Well, I would say that the way that I look at it, I think of, certain economic factors that are real and true. The more, the merrier. So if, like, for instance, we have this wonderful place in Rhode Island called East Greenwich, Rhode Island. And on Main Street, they just kept making it easier and easier for restaurants to open. They expedited their licensing, and they really tried to help businesses open in the restaurant arena. So if you think about it, when you say, where are you going out to dinner Friday night? Well, I'm going to go up to East Greenwich. Because basically, if one restaurant's full, you'll go to the next. You'll go to the next. And the idea is, if there's a lot of restaurants, a lot of people who didn't make plans are going to show up, and whichever one they can get in, they're going to go to. Yes. And I feel the same way about the arts. In Gallery Night in Providence, up on Atwoods Avenue, they encouraged more and more galleries to come up because they wanted a cluster of galleries so that there was more art for more people to come see. So you're not just going to go see, one gallery. You're going to go see 10 galleries, or however that number is. So I feel like, to be honest, with the arts, and it's better to collaborate than to compete. I don't see artists as competitive types. And if they are, I think it can work against you. I think we need each other. We're so diverse. Our tastes are, our styles are, our hearts are, our minds are. And we help each other by bringing together more artists. So that's the whole philosophy with the Kilburn Mill. So the Artisan Center itself has 38 studios. They're not all completely built out yet. We have many of them filled with a variety of arts and crafters and artisans. But it's not the only place in the mill that there's artists. We have a guitar maker on the second floor down a hallway in a very remote area, hence why we need these our signage to get even better, and the street signs will, take a right on Main, go down, Melville to the left, and, second door on there. It's going to be a lot easier getting people around. We have Judith Klein Art Gallery. We have Sheila Oliveri, Betty Carney. We have retail shops that have artisan work in them on the first floor. So when we have an AHA night, I put it out to the entire Kilburn Mill, just so they can stay open if they want to. Now as time goes on, we're going to completely develop and create ways of, with mapping and, instructions for people, the general public, to get around. So there's more than one place within the mill. Matter of fact, I just had someone call me last week and saying, I have a friend in from out of town. Can you show me around? Now, it's not like a mall where there's regular hours, so you wouldn't know. I mean, I went over to see what Hatch Street was all about last year, and there wasn't anyone in the whole place. I was amazed because I thought, couldn't wait. And there's nothing wrong with that. I understand it happens here all the time because you can't really get artists to get on the same, you know.
You don't have a concierge.
Yeah, well, it's not even so much that, some of our artists, this is their third job or it's their hobby. They're working all day. They come in from 9 till midnight and they work on their work. We can't expect them to keep the doors open, so to speak, but we are trying to move forward. For instance, last Saturday, we had a really great open house. James Montgomery came within my Art Universe gallery here, and he played, and which was great. Next door at Miato Fitz Gallery, they had steel drums, and they're pretty much open every Saturday. Star Garden Design, they're open every Saturday. I'm open every Saturday. So, I mean, that's 3 galleries or 3 places, and then there's more that open up. And it's when we really plan it, it gets a lot easier for people to be able to commit so they can turn down other opportunities in the future. So that's my job here at the Mill, is to get us more cohesive and find more times. We do participate in AHA, and I will say it's difficult because even some of our artists go downtown because they have a history and they have a following that sees them downtown at AHA nights. So to get them to be a part of driving traffic here is a great goal, but it's not going to be easy. We have to figure out ways to do that. But I will say there are some hidden gems in this Mill. Some of the artists here, they don't go out into the community and become a part of the big collaboration, but they're phenomenal and they're heartfelt and they're shy, some of them, and they don't even know how to do that. So, having a place where we can have these open houses where even if an artist is not in the Artisan Center, what I've started doing as of last Saturday and will continue to do is bring their artwork up and put it on the walls with a bio and their website and contact information on the wall. So, and I watched people go around. They went to all the studios that were open, but they also looked at the wall and saw that, there's other places in the Mill that have other artists. And not just that, we have retail shops that also have artisan work in it. And so we're trying to, it's going to get, our communications is going to get better, and our ability to explain who we are and how to get there to the general public is going to get there. It doesn't happen overnight, but we're working on it.
Yeah, you almost need like an AHA afterglow where, you can't, when you're done with the agenda at AHA, you can come on over to the Kilburn. And before I forget, is there a brewery going in the Mill?
So we are completely set up to have a brewery in the Mill. And now I really believe that would have already taken place, but for the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing space, and it'd probably take a maximum of 2 months before it was actually prepared and ready to open. Mm-hmm. We do have people interested in running it, and it's still up for grabs in the sense that we could build it out and run it ourselves and staff it ourselves, or if somebody from the community said, hey, I would love to do that, and that would be my business, they would lease from us. So it could go either way. It's not our number one focus. Right now, our number one focus is preparing everything that we can for the 3rd floor to open. There's been construction going on up there. We still have some work to do on one of the centers. Like I said, one of the event spaces, about 5,000 square feet, will not be open until 2022. And it's, fixing and tweaking all the things, the sprinkler heads and the this and the that and everything, getting us prepared to safely open in June.
Right. And as soon as you get to the bottom of your list, you start at the top again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
As far as the artist community, the creative community is concerned, one of the biggest elements that's missing is the collectors and buyers, a way to attract collectors from near and far. And the difference between collectors and buyers are casual buyers. They're millennials probably make up the biggest bunch of that group, where they can afford a couple of $100 pieces of artwork, and that's pretty much about it. But they'll buy, several couple of $100 pieces of artwork, whereas the collectors can come in and we're talking starting at 5 figures and working their way up. That whole concept of getting everyone together is something that is working quite well for a group that I belong to. My wife is originally from Detroit, and I fell across something called the Detroit Fine Arts Breakfast Club, which started off just 2 guys having breakfast, and a 3rd guy joined them. And it's one of those classic organic marketing stories. It just kept going.
Nice.
And COVID came along and put the kibosh on a head count of about 100 people that would jam into this restaurant, within the legal occupancy levels, permit levels. Very difficult to get parking, so on and so forth. But in 9 years' time in their existence, they sold $4 million worth of artwork. None of which was commissionable to the group, because they're just a group. The family doesn't need a legal document, neither do groups. But a lot of it came because buyers and collectors heard about the artists get together, they parade around their artwork, they talk about it, they're asked how much you want for that. They'll give a price, and somebody will generally yell out "sold," and then they go into a neutral corner, the Jesus corner, so as somebody referred to it once, and they'll do their own negotiations and cut the check or take the cash or whatever the situation is. And I don't mean to put you on the spot. This is just thinking out loud.
Sure.
Any ideas of how that could be done at the Kilburn to get buyers and collectors from, again, near and far?
So I will tell you that I believe everything is based on relationships. And I believe that those form organically and they have to be authentic. And I think that we've begun some of those partnerships and collaborations within this community on several levels. One of them, I would like to say, is already accomplished. That there was a Cultivator Shoals is a historic bar that was revamped, and they were looking for artwork, and several artists came to the table. But eventually, I was asked if I could curate that, and so quickly, I got 4 artists together on a theme, and the theme that I wanted was historical figures within the New Bedford area that we could highlight, so that you aren't just going to Cultivator Shoals to be in this really cool speakeasy type of bar, but it has history, and these people probably were in it at one point or another. And so let's let it be educational and historic. So the 4 artists did 8 works, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm trying to think, because we did 12, maybe 13 works. We did add some work at later, and they're all based on historical figures. Frederick Douglass, Henry Fox Brown, Hetty Green, the Whaling Women, Captain Roberts, who wrote Robert's Rules of Order while he was in New Bedford, and so on and so forth. Matter of fact, I'm getting so much feedback on that exhibit that it's just kind of mind-blowing. We will be telling that story in a different podcast and actually a little video about the event. It's just that COVID has made it so we don't want to draw a ton of people into there to see it. But as they come in, I get feedback that people are kind of blown away by the exhibit, because each one of them has a little bio with about the person that's in, and it was all done in a steampunk kind of feel, most of the artwork. So very eclectic and mostly modern. Some of it's a little more traditional. Phenomenal artwork, and it's just a great experience. So a perfect example of cross-pollinating in the community with a restaurant and with artists. So one of those artists' works somebody wants to buy, but what they're going to have to do is commission, because it's already sold. The artwork has already been purchased. So some of those artists are getting opportunity from that. Another thing we're doing is we're bringing in the New Bedford Symphony is going to come. We're going to have an amazing group of musicians come in. I think that's July 13th or somewhere in that area. That's just getting formulated as of yesterday. But what we're going to do is we're going to have some of our artists within the mill go into the event center and possibly out on the deck. We have to configure. It's all in the organic planning stages. They're going to be painting live. They're going to have some of their artwork represented there. And we are inviting everybody and anybody who's into the symphony. And a lot of times people who are into symphony and pay money to go see the symphony are also collectors. They're usually very creative or appreciative of the arts, the creative and performing arts. And so I believe that organically, because based on relationships that we're developing, some of those people will become buyers. Another thing that I'm doing is I've been collecting the bios of my artists and works of theirs so that I have that to present to anyone in a binder form. And eventually we finally get where we want to be on our website. That'll be more on the Hatch Street side where you can see the bio of the artist. So I think it's, it's not one thing, it's many things. It's more virtual shows inside of people's galleries. And once we can open up, they can be live shows where we're inviting the public to come, hear somebody that they appreciate in the music world, but then be able to see the collaboration between that artist and the musician. And so that's just the beginning of the formulating of that. Another thing that we'll be doing, one of my taglines for the Art Universe, I can't really land on one in particular, but that's my personal business, is the Art Universe. And it's where music meets the arts. And I brought that tagline to the Mill because that's kind of what we do. So when we have these concerts on the third floor or in the courtyard or on the rooftop deck, we will be having artists who either can paint live or have their art represented during the concert. We have another, I don't want to really give the reveal, but an amazing collaboration between a lot of Boston legends and the arts and education. That will be a weekend event, probably going into the spring of 2022. But anyway, so I think as we continue that, and I love the idea of the Breakfast Club, we do kind of have that now, and it's getting a little bit bigger, where the artists, there's a small core, we are actually working on a major open studio for the third weekend in October. And that will have its own pamphlet. It'll be prepared way ahead of time. So everyone, every artist can actually bring in more artists if they want and sublet their, in addition to their work, they can have other artists in there and also other locations within the Mill. We might be able to add even more. So I'm very excited about that component. But, the point is that you never can figure out what's going to be the moment when the public sees you the way you are and the way you have the potential of becoming. And so if you can't envision what that looks like in your own mind, you'll just be, shooting in the dark. But we're not shooting in the dark. We have some tried and true practices within our community. It's not just me, it's every person in this community of artists has their own network, their own philosophy, and their own niche market. And as we bring those together and we talk more and we have our quote breakfast club, I think we're going to come up with some really cool ideas. And we're going to hopefully bring those collectors and buyers to us on a more fluid, I'd like to be seen as a resource in the community for commission work, even for our own artists.
Yeah, and with that in mind, and before I proceed, kudos to you and the whole crew, because what you've started, and I think you're still at that
almost inception.
The first stage, of business, that's for sure. But what you've accomplished so far has been phenomenal. And one of the things that I like that you said was it's not one thing, it's many things, because unfortunately, the mindset of those who ran the city or thought that they had could find benefits for the city, that silver, what I call that silver bullet mentality. Oh, this is the thing that'll make it happen. It's just this. I mean, if you look at a clock, it's not just one gear; it's a lot of gears, and they're all meshing together, and in synchronization, and that's really what's important. As you're also speaking to, and because of several things that I've been involved in, and I write articles and such. And I was thinking, and then we'll get on to you, Sarah Hale Folger, the artist. is an art auction, but that's like, those are two dirty words. Actually, and the third dirty word is exposure. A lot of charitable organizations, and I don't mean to be crass, will tap an artist on the shoulder and say, hey, would you like to donate a piece of work? You can get great exposure.
Yep.
You can't pay the rent with exposure. And then to make it matters worse, even if the painting sold for $50,000, the artist can't write that off because they can only write off the canvas and stretchers and the materials. That's it. That's all they can write off. So with that in mind, and the research I've been doing on artist estates, which is starting to grow and grow and grow, to have a real artist auction where people can bring their work. I mean, let's face it, we all have stuff under our bed, in the attic, in the closet, in the basement, in the garage, in the storage unit, all over the place. Some of the stuff is old, and it's good stuff, or else we wouldn't have kept it. And to bring the stuff forward, to have a real auctioneer, have live auction as well as a online and call-in auction, and clear our inventory, and the artists get their money. Of course, the house gets a cut because they're putting all this together, just like a gallery does. But it's priced to move. It's to get attention, not just exposure. It's to get attention in cash, is what it is.
Well, I can tell you that we might want to collaborate on that, because one of the events that we want to host is called Art on the Roof. And we were going to be just bringing our artists up to sell their works on the roof, even though they have their studios in here. It's just a new environment, and having some acoustic music, cocktail hour, and that type of thing, art on the roof. So I will actually seriously entertain that. One of the fundraisers that we put on, I guess maybe almost 2 years ago, included an auction of the person that we were doing.
This is an auction that's for the artist.
Yeah, well, I'm saying we could certainly, that's not my niche, but if you've already done the research, we could certainly find, we could maybe collaborate on that. I think that's not a bad idea, because if you come to the Art on the Roof anyway to purchase art, you're already there. You might as well go online and really pre-prepare this in such a way that people know they can tune in and they're part of an art auction online, virtually, as well as on location. Great idea. Let's partner on that.
All right. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's turn it over to take it home, as they say. About you. Tell us all about you.
All about me. Woo!
and you can't include any more about Kilburn because you've already done that. It's just about you. Yeah.
Just about me. Okay. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've been in the creative and performing arts arena on one level or another pretty much my entire life. From dance to theater. I went to this school for creative and performing arts as a kid. And I majored in drama and minored in music. And at the same time, I was always interested in painting, actually drawing more pastels back in my teen years. I was going to go to the Cincinnati Art Museum, and then I lost everything in a fire in 1982, and I moved away from Cincinnati, and I got into music. And I was in a band that won the Battle of the Bands in Boulder, Colorado, and ended up singing on stage in a nightclub that we were the house band, but they brought in people like Gladys Knight and the Pips and those types of people. I didn't last long because I had a lot of anxiety about people, not so much performing, which I loved, but people. It was, back in the 80s, it was like, hey, here's some cocaine. I was like, whoa, oh man. It was just a little overwhelming. I was very young, and turned down a recording contract in favor of moving with my husband to New England to start over. And I'd say I've built things up in my life, including the theater part, the music part, the art part, only do restart all the time. So It's been an interesting kind of career in that. Worked in nonprofit, actually was raised in a nonprofit. We ran a wildlife rehabilitation project where we rescued animals out of the circus. We all worked at the zoo. We're volunteered at the zoo, and we had monkeys and snakes and owls and hawks and raccoons, you name it. We had over 200 animals at any given time. So my life was spent mostly in the nonprofit world because I was raised in it. And then I ended up running a nonprofit for a while in Wickford, Rhode Island, the Wickford Art Association. I was their executive director for close to 6 years. So I got into that, worked for Gallery Night in Providence for 7 years. And so I have my own artwork that I do, but I kind of always move between music, art, and film. I'm actually going to be the narrator in an upcoming film on the life of Sib Hashin, who was the former drummer for the band Boston. He passed away a few years ago. I've been on the Tony C. Conigliaro documentary, which I was a creative director for that and did the music score, and that's going back a couple of years ago now. So we're beginning our film, and actually we will be doing a lot of filming here in New Bedford, believe it or not, because this is where we're located. Yellow Box Entertainment is located, the Art Universe is located, and we figure why not collaborate with what we do as well as what we do at Kilburn Mill. So we will be shooting a major scene on the 3rd floor. Actually, I don't know if I should give it away, but it's really cool. Tons of drummers, and it involves drumming, drummers, and drones, let's just say.
Oh, okay. Could you hold on a second, please?
I certainly can.
It's almost like this break brought to you by Daisy, the American foxhound. But that's those are the joys of doing it at home. And you know what? I think just as a quick aside, that the pandemic and COVID and so on and so forth, there's all these bad things, but I think it's also gotten us to loosen up a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because even you see newscasters, on television, and the kids are walking by in their onesies, and
Yes.
It's what it is. It's what it is. So
definitely.
Wow. So a musical career as well. So that brings obviously the credentials to what you're doing now, which we won't mention because we've already talked about that. And how did you get into painting, into art? I mean, talk about drawing and such.
Yes, I actually doodled as a nervous habit in different school settings. So I discovered that art and doodling helped me concentrate. Probably has something to do with ADHD type of component. Yeah, which a lot of us have.
Yeah.
Not a fun thing because you don't. And it's easy to get diverted if you don't know how to, to calm yourself and rhythmically, speak to your brain patterns and access the things that are of great value to other people rather than all the crazy stuff that's flying through your head. But anyway, so I started doing that as far as painting and drawing many years ago. It was passionate of mine, probably because Joni Mitchell is my hero. She really spoke to me. And I started drawing, doing pastels. I think one of the first things I did was her album cover for Blue. And I said, I want to be her. I want that life. But, everybody's life is different, but she certainly inspired me. And I've always appreciated that a person knows what they want to do. But I also understand that other people out there in the world will sometimes cause a creative person to stay in a pocket that they don't want to stay in. So for instance, if you're an actor and you do Bruce Willis, right? You're Bruce Willis and you do all these, action-packed things, and the next thing you do a lovey-dovey love story, people don't like that because they see you as one thing and they want you to be that. And I don't think that's fair to artists. And I rebel against that in every fiber of my being. Because I think not only does it push your own envelope to discover more about yourself, but I think it causes the world to have to expand their understanding of being so limiting to people and their genres. And I think the same thing happens with art. Types of paint, if a realistic painter starts to go abstract, is he justified? Is she justified? Is it good because I haven't been doing it? Well, and it's funny because don't you find it so funny because people just define you and I rebel against it. And I don't consider myself any great thing at any one thing I do. But what I love about life is that it gives me the opportunity to take what I call the stream of creativity that flows through us and tap into whatever type of outlet that you want. And if you do it long enough, that becomes your type of art. And for me, I think that's the type of artist I am. I love to write. I have a blog. You can see on my Art Universe website that you can get a link to my blog. And I love to write. And sometimes it hasn't happened for a little while now, but I just write a blog as it comes to me, and it's more of a metaphor. And I don't know if it's any good or not, but I have to do it when I have to do it. And when I feel like I need to paint, I paint. And when I need to play the piano, which I'm not a great pianist by any means, but I'll sit there and I'll let it flow through me, because number one, what it does for me is it heals me, and it sets my brain straight, and it puts me on a path. And I think you'll find a lot of artists out there. I mean, like Kat Knutson, who's in our mill. What doesn't she do, from animation to painting to music? And she's very Renaissance. Yeah. She's a Renaissance kid, and she's not a kid, but she's, the age of one of my daughters. So to me, but I look at this great force of energy that comes out of people like her. And there's so many of them. And I think that when you are an artist, it's going to come out in your gardening, your cooking. You can't hide it. It's a part of how you view the world, how you communicate who you are. What I love about painting is that for me, most of my painting is, it is intuitive. So I go to a canvas without any direction at all, but this whirlwind that's inside of me, whether it be grief-stricken. I lost my mother this past year during the pandemic and wasn't able to see her. Whether it's other things that are going on, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether it's whatever energy force is in me. When I do intuitive painting, it's just, I don't know where I'm going. So it's first an adventure for me. Whether it turns out to be a great piece or not, it's irrelevant to me. The relevant part to me is that I had some sort of form of outlet that's going to get this part of this experience in the moment that I'm having in this life onto something recognizable. And I believe you can be a perfectionist. I'm just not one. I'm not good at perfectionism. A lot of times, once that energy burst is gone, I stop the painting and that's it. If I were to go back at it now, it's a different person coming at it. Some analytical head person, not the person of spirit that was just flowing on the canvas. So yes, sometimes I do that because I'm disciplining myself a little bit. What would I make out of it now in this frame of mind? So I consider that like my kind of art. And I think, running galleries before and seeing, even just if you're in somebody else's gallery or a museum, you see that work of art that's in front of you. That artist had intention, or just let the energy flow, whatever it was, they have a message there. Their calling card, their story that they're telling is right there on that canvas. But there's another story entirely. And I've seen people argue, and I'm like, there is no argument. When you put your art on the wall, somebody in their world, in their moment, is coming to that artwork. They're looking at that artwork in their place where they stand and where they sit in their mind. And their interpretation of your art could be radically different than what the intent of the art is. But if that is their experience with their art, that's their story. They buy that piece of art and they put it on their wall. That's the story they're going to tell.
Exactly.
And that basically, to me, tells me that it's true. Both of those stories are true. And that's what I love about art.
Yeah,
that's what I love about it.
Ernst Gombrich, the art historian, he only passed away a couple of years ago. He was well up there. He was in his 90s. And I always used his text, the story of art in my art history classes. But I believe it was in Art in Illusion. What you just described is what he referred to as the beholder's share. Whatever it is that you think you're putting up there is fine. But as soon as you expose that to someone else's sensibilities and they look at it, it is what it is to them. And you can't
That's right.
change that. And you can't change that. And it's funny, I've been having that phenomena happening. You talked about someone changing from, figurative work to abstract work. And I went from abstract work to figurative work, and it all really started at the art fair at the Kilburn Mills. It's a long story, but it started there. And I went back to figurative work. And one of the series that I created was to commemorate the 100th anniversary of it runs by several names, the Black Wall Street Massacre, the Greenwood Massacre, the Tulsa Massacre. And I did 10 paintings, one for every decade that's passed since the massacre. And it's amazing how
Wow.
people, when they look at the work, not knowing that it's, it's called America's Guernica Greenwood, they have, oh, it's so powerful and so this and it's beautiful. And it's like, oh my God, it's about a massacre. And it's like, well, I painted it with my headset, trying to get into that moment, for all of my own reasons. But if someone finds a beauty in it, then, well, they said even in Auschwitz, people were finding beauty. They were doing these incredible watercolors and illustrations and whatever, because we need beauty. We need to find it in sometimes the most bizarre places.
It's so true. And you're just making me think, as you're expounding on what we were talking about there, that another thing that I find that art teaches me and that I'm able to translate oftentimes to my students is that, there's the way, don't get upset when somebody sees your work for something that you don't perceive that it is, because that's going to teach you something about life. And what it teaches you about life is one of those things that's hard to understand. But as you grow older and you get outside of your network, your family, mom and dad, well, sometimes they don't know who you are, actually. Sometimes they don't get their own children. But let's say in a perfect world, mom and dad really get you. They know you. They understand you. And when you say something, they know where that comes from because they've known you since you were born. Well, when you go out there into the schoolroom and the playground and the workforce, etc., and people misunderstand you, it's sometimes devastating because your intent was 100% different, and you're trying to convince somebody that that's not what you're thinking and not who you are. And this is the cause of every argument that you have in your marriages, with your friends, with your family. This is the cause. Somebody is making an assumption about you that doesn't fit with your perceived notion of yourself and your intent in life. You don't even think those thoughts, but because it reminded them of something that somebody else did to them, they attribute that to you and write you off. And I see it. I mean, who hasn't been frustrated by relationship dynamics that are just making you want to pull your hair out? Because that's not what I meant when I said that. Well, you don't know me. I thought you knew me. All this. When the dynamics of getting to know you and everything's all new and exciting and fun, and then suddenly you start to clash. The closer and closer and tighter you get with someone, because now you're really talking about who really are you, not just who my fantasy is of you, because we get along so well, you bring out the best of me, I see myself in you. Now all of a sudden there's this, wait a minute, tension. Yeah. And I believe that art can actually help in relationships. And I think it's really cool. And I won't give it all away, but I do these workshops, and I will start to do them again with families, also oftentimes with autistic children, and also with women who have been through any type of trauma. This is also a good technique for them. But I do these things where when you're bringing people together and they have to work on a piece of artwork together, boy, oh boy, do they learn a lot about each other if you do the process in a certain way. But my point is how we all have to understand that we're not just who we think we are who others perceive us to be. And I think art it gives you something to work with that you can almost take, because it's outside of you. And so you can talk about this thing on the wall. It's not really as personal if you can let go of that. And that's why I think art heals. I believe art heals relationships, and I believe it helps people communicate themselves. There's a story to be told. Artists need to be seen. Everybody does. When you look at a baby in a baby carriage, one of the things about the pandemic that's bothered me so much is I have 6 grandchildren, and some of them are very small. And when they see Yaya with a mask on, it took a long time to get used to all of that. Very upsetting to them, their perception of reality. If you look at babies and you look at small children, a lot of times you see when they're being ignored and they're just looking around, they're lost. in some sort of hypnotic trance until you're around 7, when you become more cognitive in your thinking. So you're actually looking for the world to show you what you're thinking, what's really happening, because a child is perceiving the environment. They're looking at the light. They're looking at the new colors they've never seen before. They're hearing sounds out of people's mouths that they've never heard before. They're overwhelmed in their sensory, right? So when you look at them in the eye and speak to them, have you ever just said hello to a little baby in a carriage and boom, their eyes, and they shake and they go cooing, they're talking, because you see them, you're speaking to them and you're listening to them. So they know they're there. Now I know where I am. I'm with this person and now, they see me. Well, we don't really lose that. We really don't lose that, as much as we'd like to think we don't. As we go through our lives, even as adults, even till the grave, we want to be seen for who we really are. We want to be understood. We want to be heard. And I think art is a conduit for people to leave their mark in this world and feel good about it.
I think sometimes, especially as artists, especially as artists, but for everyone, we do need other people to show us who we are. Because I've been using the expression for a while now. You can't see the nose on your face. Only other people can see your nose, but it's there. It's there. Yes, it is. So you really are not all that aware, all that self-aware. And unfortunately, some people who are so very self-aware become destructive because they don't like what it is they see, what they feel, so on and so forth. We'll have to start wrapping this up. Sure. This has been fantastic, but I love my podcast because I have the privilege of speaking to so many people, getting into their heads, or letting them just reveal, peel back the layers of skin and just let me look inside. Yeah. And we have such an incredible, vibrant community. And,
yes, we do.
I think we're just at the beginning. We haven't seen, we ain't seen nothing yet.
I totally agree with that.
So to wrap this up, I want to ask you, a classic question is, sure, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, when you say that, the first thing I think of is my grandchildren. If anything were to happen to me, how would I be described? I would have to say that I helped humanity become a better place to be in. And I guess it's pretty simple. I want to open doors for people. I want to walk through the ones that I have and actually be able to appreciate them, the opportunities that I do have, the marks that I'm making, let's say, on the canvas of my life. I want them to be beautiful at the end of it. I know it's a beautiful, ugly thing, this life that we live. We're so imperfect. I'm so imperfect. I can be so impatient. I can get things wrong. But at the end of the day, I want to be known as someone who really cared and really loved my family and the artists that are around me, because I can't get away from the component that I think what makes me happy, probably the most happy, whether it's with my grandchildren, my children, with others, is that I enlightened them in some way, that they turned around and the rudder of their ship was straightened just a little bit to go in the direction that they wanted to get in, and I played a part in that. That's important to me. It's very important to me. I've never been that autonomous. I've always been a community person, a team person more than I wish I was more focused on myself at times to really work my art through. But no, I'd say that she helped the community become better, safer. When I say safe, so many people are so afraid to express themselves in music, in dance, in theater, in ideas, in writings, and in art, because they're so afraid of the criticism. And I would like to be known as somebody who encouraged and saw the potential in everybody that comes across my path and helped to get that person pointed in the right direction.
Thank you. So yeah, we are here obviously to be in service to each other. And that's really what it comes down to.
And that's why you have this podcast.
Exactly. Well, actually, the whole idea of the podcast was about memory. It was like you spoke about your grandchildren. I thought about my two grandchildren, my great grandson, that we live on. We have at least two other generations to live on that had direct connections to us. And when those generations are gone, we are gone again. My daughter remembers me, my grandchildren remember me, my great grandson will remember me. And then when he's gone, I'll cease to exist again. And that's kind of a sad thing. So this whole idea about the podcast was to get people down on tape, as they used to say in the old days. Some of it was kind of inspired on painters painting. The classic 1971 movie with the abstract expressionists. Because I've gone through that film like 3 times already, and every time I go back, and it's amazing to see Jules Olitsky holding I think it's a cat or a dog. I still can't figure out what that black thing is. Yeah, so nonchalantly talking about his art, and he's like speaking to the camera, and I think a lot of the thoughts that came into his head that moment. He never thought about them before, and that's what's so cool. That's what's so cool about it. Well, thank you, Sarah Hale Folger.
Thank you, Ron.
And thank you, folks, for joining us once again. This is another episode of the In Focus podcast, brought to you by the South Coast Artists Index, which is sponsored by Heavenly Spirits. And we thank Heavenly Spirits for their wonderful support. And with that, see you later. Bye.
Bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Be the artist you believe you are, and let's take care of each other out there.